Nimetoka kuchukua bail mpya ya watu wa defilement. Mmoja amedungwa miaka 600, mwingine miaka 300.
Kitu kile kiduraga muno wale ni kuwa siku nimefanya hiyo tendo. Hiyo ndio kitu yenye inauniuma kwa roho.
So after like 2 days nikasikia wameekelea mtu mwingine. Na huo mtu akatoa pesa. So nikaanza kujiuliza ama ni biashara ama nini.
But is younger sentenced to serve 20 years in prison. There's a right of away within 40 days from today.
Sheria ni ile ile mse. Kama amekuja kwako na hajauma ID kwa mdomo, achana naye. Huyo ni mwanafunzi.
Those ones, there is a life sentence. There is nothing you can do. Even the courts themselves, we have no mercy for such a people.
Na siku moja ya jela si kama siku ya raia. Siku ya jela ni tofauti na siku ya raia. Siku ya jela ni fupi kuliko siku ya raia.
Master of ceremonies has been held to court for defiling a number of minors. Well, the verdict is in and he has been sentenced to 71 years in prison.
Unajua kitu haujafanya inakuanga na ujasiri.
Oya bro, kama una date msichana underage, yani msichana ako high school, wachana na yeye asome. Tafadhali, nimekuomba.
Kuna wakati mtoto mmoja alishikwa, mtoto mdogo 13 years hapo. Alikuwa amepatikana wana msichana wakicheza na msichana wa rika yake wakicheza in their private parts, and then the boy akastakiwa na kuwa na defilement, and the worst thing ni kwamba msichana alibaki akiendelea na masomo. The little boy child akaumia kwa sababu aliletwa hapa.
Kitu unachofanya inakuanga hata ya confidence. Na wewe mwenyewe mpaka unasikia vizuri.
Unaweza kuwa sasa unaenjoy hiyo simu 1, unaitwanga vizuri, lakini wewe utaenjoyiwa simu 2, miaka 15 pale na wanaume, na wale wanaga joke. Wale ni kutwanga.
Picture this. You are on a normal day's errand. You see this girl, she's kind of beautiful and attractive. So, you pull your guts together and go and approach her. She's receptive and falls for your charms. That's how you get her number and the courting process begins. A few chats here and there, a few calls, a few one-on-one encounters, and you start thinking of transitioning this from a mere friendship to something more. So, you invite her over to your place for lunch or dinner, or even just a cup of tea. And to your delight, she accepts the invitation. Next thing you know, your next door neighbor is screaming at the top of her voice that you have brought a child into your house. A crowd of angry people has gathered outside your house ready to beat you up till you can't move anymore. And police sirens are wailing in the distance. In the split of a second, you have traveled to 2 extremely opposite moments in time. One where you are happy and are about to share a meal with a cherished guest, or make a meal out of your cherished guest, if you know what I mean. And the other where you are inside a cold police cell waiting for trial. The charges pressed against you are defilement of a minor. How did this happen? You ask yourself. Well, turns out, your long-desired date forgot to tell you that she had actually just turned 16 and had a plan all along with her parents and your neighbor to frame you for attempting to an underage girl so they could blackmail your family into giving them some money. But how could you have known? She looked quite the same age as you. Surely this isn't fair. Well, it is fair. You should have known not to approach any girl who is under the age of 30. And no, it doesn't matter that you're below 25 either. In fact, anytime you approach a girl, you must ask to see her ID card or birth certificate as proof that she is not a minor.
I'm gonna need to see some ID.
Sir, I need to see some ID.
License and registration.
License and registration, please.
What's your ID number?
License and registration, please.
The ID, please.
Before proceeding to get her number, if she claims to have neither, take her to a lab and do the good old carbon dating on her. Her bones should tell you her real age. If it is anything close to 18, run for your life. This extra precaution will save you up to 30 years in prison in the best case scenario, and in the worst case, a gruesome mob justice that will leave you decapitated and crippled for the rest of your life, if not dead, or you could just end up rotting in prison for the rest of your life.
Wish I didn't do that.
You're gonna regret doing that.
I regret that.
I immediately regret doing that.
Lead with Insight, subscribe for more, and this is Underage Girls and the Unfair Justice System Against Men. During British colonial rule, laws were primarily designed to serve the interests of the colonial administration, often at the expense of indigenous populations. Sexual violence against women and girls was prevalent, but legal protections were limited and often biased against victims. When Kenya gained independence from British colonial rule in 1963, it underwent legal reforms in the years following her independence, aimed at creating a more just and equitable legal system. However, the legal framework addressing sexual assault remained inadequate and survivors often faced significant barriers in accessing justice. Over time,
Jomo Kenyatta, power iko kwa wananchi na tunajivunia Kenya yetu. Taptengelei hapa, wewe uko Taptengelei, lakini unafanyia kazi kampuni iko Marekani na unafinya kompyuta, unaenda nyumbani na unapata dola. Ama mnataka namna gani?
Kenya has enacted various laws and legal reforms aimed at addressing sexual violence and improving access to justice for survivors. Key milestones include the enactment of the Sexual Offences Act in 2006, which criminalized various forms of sexual violence and introduced measures to protect survivors. Subsequent amendments and legal reforms have sought to strengthen these protections further. You see, prior to the enactment of the Sexual Offences Act in 2006, Kenya's justice system faced significant challenges in effectively addressing sexual assault and providing justice for survivors. Sexual offences in Kenya were primarily addressed under the Penal Code, which was inherited from colonial rule. However, the Penal Code contained outdated and inadequate provisions related to sexual violence. For example, the definitions of rape and other sexual offences were narrow, and the burden of proof often fell heavy on the survivor. Additionally, cases of sexual assault were often mishandled or delayed, leading to a lack of accountability for perpetrators. The penalties for sexual offences under the Penal Code were relatively lenient compared to the severity of the crimes. For example, the maximum penalty for rape was imprisonment for life, but in practice, sentences were often much shorter and perpetrators sometimes received lenient sentences or escaped punishment altogether. Cases of sexual harassment in workplaces and schools were often underreported and rarely resulted in prosecution or conviction. Similarly, cases of defilement of minors faced obstacles in terms of investigation, prosecution, and securing convictions. Overall, prior to the enactment of the Sexual Offences Act in 2006, Kenya's justice system struggled to effectively address sexual assault and provide justice for survivors. The legal framework was outdated and inadequate. Survivors faced stigma and barriers to accessing support services, and cases of sexual harassment and defilement were often mishandled or overlooked. The enactment of the Sexual Offences Act represented a significant step forward in strengthening legal protections for survivors and holding perpetrators accountable for their crimes. So you can see that the current justice system in Kenya came from a place of good intent. It was created to serve justice to the numerous victims of sexual offences who, before that, rarely got justice served. However, this does not mean that this justice system cannot be twisted, monetized, and used to benefit evil, greedy, and tactful people. As you will come to learn, most evil things in this world started from a place of righteousness and good intent. The Sexual Offences Act 2006 Section 8 states that a person who commits an act which causes penetration with a child is guilty of an offence termed defilement. Now, a child, according to the Children Act, is an individual who has not attained the age of 18 years. Under the same section, the Sexual Offences Act continues to state that A person who commits an offense of defilement with a child aged 11 years or less shall upon conviction be sentenced to imprisonment for life. A person who commits an offense of defilement with a child between the age of 12 and 15 years is liable upon conviction to imprisonment for a term of not less than 20 years. A person who commits an offense of defilement with a child between the age of 16 and 18 years is liable upon conviction to imprisonment for a term of not less than 15 years. Let that sink in for a moment. 15 years of your life is a very long time. For context, you could be jailed today and a baby is born on the same day, and by the time you're getting out, the baby will already be a year into high school. And that's just the minimum sentence here. Imagine being jailed for double that time. The baby will already be married and probably have kids. If you are 20 years old and you get 30 years in prison, you'll be 50 when you get out. Your peers will be grandparents, your parents will be dead or approaching 100 years in age, and your girlfriend, if you had one, will be a happy mother of 3. Scary, isn't it? And that's assuming the judge is feeling a bit lenient and doesn't slap you with life imprisonment. It's terrifying enough if it's a crime you've committed, but imagine getting a life sentence for a crime you didn't commit. Imagine your life being taken away for something you never even imagined of doing, and having absolutely no power to change that. How, you ask? Let's ask Julius Wambua, because that's exactly the kind of situation he found himself in more than a decade ago from the time of the posting of this video. In 2011, Julius Wambua was sentenced to life imprisonment after he was found guilty of defiling his daughter. The daughters, who had come to visit him in his home after he had separated with his wife, testified in court saying that their father had raped them. Julius, who had gone shopping, was approached by 2 policemen, and the next thing he knew, he was in a jail cell awaiting trial for sexually assaulting his daughter. So was it true? Did Julius really commit the crime? Did a heartless father really assault his innocent daughters? Well, pay attention.
Mnamo 007 nilikuja nikatengana na bibi yangu wa kwanza, na kiini chenye kilifanya tutengane ilikuwa shamba. Alikuwa anataka niuze shamba ili nimngowie pesa tutokane.
On an episode of Prison Diaries on Citizen TV, Lulu Hassan, a well-renowned Kenyan reporter, paid Julius Wambua a visit at the Kamichi Maximum Prison. Julius was, for the first time in nearly a decade, not only getting his first visitor, but also allowed to tell his side of the story. According to Julius, he had been forcefully imprisoned for a crime he had not committed. His children were important to him, and although his daughter had testified against him in court, he was sure that he had not sexually assaulted any of his daughters. As Lulu Hassan continues to interrogate him, he opens up and we start to see a picture of what really happened.
Alipositi na kupika makelele na kukombana na mimi, nikaambia subchifu, nikaita subchifu akakuja, nikamwambia hii shamba nitauza. Nilipouza nikamgawia pesa na nikabaki na zile zangu. Kila mtu akaenda kivyake. Mimi nikabaki na watoto na yeye akatoroka akaenda.
In 2007, Julius Wambua divorced his wife and mother of 2. The reason for their divorce was the piece of land that Julius owned. His wife kept urging him to sell it and give her a portion of the money, and after a long time of arguing and getting no peace from his wife, Jacqueline Zilani, Julius finally decided to sell his piece of land at the time. He sold it for 150,000 shillings, which, accounting for inflation, is 609,960 shillings in today's money. He gave half the money to his wife and kept the rest to himself. His wife left home immediately she got the money, leaving him with his 2 children. After a few days, the children followed their mother and Julius was left all alone. He tried all means to get his wife back, but she insisted that she didn't want to go back to him. He did this for 6 months, trying to even talk to her parents, but all to no avail. Eventually, he gave up trying to get his wife back. So he tried getting back his children so that he could educate them. But they refused to go back to him. Julius was left with no choice but to move on. He bought another piece of land and married another wife. But just as he was trying to settle into this new life, his past came to haunt him.
Nilipooa bibi mwingine, tutoto tuwili sasa usu tumeniweka jela. Toka simwende na anastati ya mkuru. Akawarudisha kwangu.
His first wife wouldn't let him move on. She sent her children back to Julius, and because Julius loved his children, he welcomed them back with open arms. And that's when the tides shifted and his life went into a completely different direction.
Nilistokea tu nikiwa kwa soko nikinunua mboga. Nikiambiwa nikiwa nyumbani nikinunua mboga kwa soko. Nikiambiwa ya kwamba wewe ndio nataka. Nikaulizwa majina nikasema, nikaambiwa nimetuma na OCS wewe ndio nataka. Nikauliza ni nini? Nikaambiwa utajulia mbele.
Julius was sentenced to life imprisonment. In an attempt to find out the truth of the matter, Lulu Hassan called his daughter, who had never come to see him, and asked her to come to Committee Maximum Prison. Not sure whether she will make the journey or not, Lulu and Julius waited for the girl to get there, and when she finally did, the mystery was unfolded. Here's what she had to say.
Chenye kilikufanya ukuje huku ni wakati mwenye uliachana na mama yetu. Sasa mama alisafiri akatuacha. After kutuacha, after ule bibi mwenye ulioa, mama hakumtaka kwa ajili alidhani ile mali alikuwa nayo atarithi. So mpango mwenye alitengeneza ndio ilifanya ukuje jela wapate kuuza ile shamba na arithi ile mali. Mama aliniambia niseme, ulinishika.
Julia's daughter confessed to lying in court. Everything she testified, everything she had said before the judge was a blatant lie. Julius had not raped her, he hadn't even touched her. She was just saying things to put him in prison. But why? Why would her daughter testify against her father? Why would she condemn her father to such a long sentence in prison? Well, this rabbit hole gets even deeper.
Kuja hiyo siku after 1 week, ndio mama aliniita akaniambia, "Nasikia dada ameoa bibi mwingine. Wacha anitumie mimi apeleke dad jela."
You see, everything the daughter said, she was told to say. Everything she did, she was told to do. Every witness who gave a false testimony, the doctor who gave false reports, every policeman who was involved, were not sure about the judge. They were all part of a grand scheme that had been devised to put Julius in jail. And Julius' first wife was the mastermind. She was behind everything that had put Julius behind bars for close to 10 years. All because she wanted to take all of her ex-husband's properties for herself. This is the purest form of greed and evil I have ever had. And it doesn't end there. According to the daughter, her mother's intentions were worse than we thought.
Hata ni yake kuwa akuje jela survive. Sasa anataka tumeshindiletewa.
If not for Citizen TV, if not for Prison Diaries, if not for Lulu Hassan, Julius will still be serving time behind bars without the hopes of ever being a free man ever again. And although his story ends with Julius being a free man once again and reuniting with his children, Julius did not get any compensation from the government nor the judicial system for wasting years of his life. The judge who sentenced him unjustly, even after Julius offered to pay for the DNA test and everything to prove his innocence, is still sleeping like a baby, with all the people he or she has put behind bars, and his wife is somewhere enjoying the spoils of war. So while Julius got his freedom back, no change was made to the Kenyan judicial system to prevent something like this from ever happening again. No effort was made to take notice of the inmates who suffer similar fates, which means that as you are watching this video, someone is probably being sentenced for a crime they didn't commit. Someone else has been arrested for a crime they didn't commit. More others are serving time for crimes they didn't commit. And if you don't watch out, If you don't lead with insight and subscribe, you too might find yourself in prison for a crime you haven't committed. And no, it doesn't matter that you are innocent. It doesn't matter that you are broke and have no money to participate in a little bribery here and there for your freedom. It doesn't matter that you didn't do the crime or the fact that there's no concrete evidence against you. You'll still pay the fine, you'll still serve the time, you'll still suffer the shame. What a fair justice system we have here, isn't it? And if you think that Julius is the only person in such a situation, that his case was only a bad incident that is hardly likely to occur, think again. Julius Wambua is only one among hundreds, perhaps thousands of men and women who are serving time behind bars for crimes they have not committed. And we've only covered defilement here. We haven't mentioned the countless other charges you can be slapped with once you get on the bad side of a policeman's day. But let's not stray off topic here. This video is about defilement, rape, and all other charges that are involved with the opposite gender. I'm here to educate you so that the next time you see someone attractive and blood rushes through your veins, an alarm will go off in your mind and you will think really hard about your next move.
Checkmate.
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 Our next specimen is someone you'll probably never think of. Just like Julius, Stanley Omuhinda found himself in prison after being accused of defiling his own daughter. He had served 2 years in prison and was only released because an appeal filed by his brother was somehow successful.
Anaona judge sheet yangu, ukiangalia judge sheet, dokta wote paka ule wa private ule wanaweza hongwa, alikataa akasema hakuna chochote mtoto alifanyiwa.
These allegations landed him in prison.
Majisikia kaniambia hata ni vile nimeamuka vizuri. Wewe ulikuwa unataka na kunyonga. Nimekufunga life sentence bila maneno mingi.
Stanley's story has one key difference to Julius. Unlike Julius, Stanley wasn't falsely imprisoned by the tactics of a greedy wife. No, his menace came from a more unexpected source. Omuhinda says that the teachers at Chandaria Primary School wanted to take custody of his children and accused him of neglecting them. Whether or not Chandaria Primary School had something to do with his arrest is up to anyone's guess. However, their bid to take custody of Omuhinda's children was successful, and even after he was released from prison, the school wouldn't let him see his children.
Sijui ni kwa nini hao walimu wamekwamilia watoto wangu. Sijui wanaona urembo gani kwa watoto wangu. Sijui ni nini wameona ndani ya watoto wangu. Nilienda huko nikiwa nimetoka, nikawapatia mabarua hizi za judge vile nasema nimetoka sina makosa. Wakakataa nisione watoto wangu.
His children also seemed not to want anything to do with him. I'm sure they had been told really nice things about their father who had been in prison for allegedly defiling his own daughter.
Nimejaribu kumtafuta, amekataa. Amesema baba, sitaki mambo yake kwa sababu anafikiria hata huyo msichana wananitoroka. Huyo mwingine pia amenikataa, manake iliwafikia ati baba amefungwa life ati kwa makosa ya kudefile mtoto wake.
But wait, there is more.
Kitu inaniumanga sana ni ati walikuwa wanajua venye walikuwa wanafanya juu simu yake na leni yake ndizo zilikuwa zinatumika. Juu alikuja akanitamkia, unajua sistangu ni wa shule. Ingekuwa ni alikuwa anajua ni wa shule, mbona alikuwa anaitikishia sitake kulichat na simu yake, na alikuwa anajua yet ni mtoto wa shule.
And one of the officers akijeta murata wako akezera Mwagi korerekana hena mwiretu ena ada na nioneka agethi gwaku muno. So kiria ungeka tha ici ire ni wime. So mimi nikapuuza kama mwanadamu venye anaweza puuza. So nikasema sasa mimi nasijafanya kitu. Then I did not know about sexual hizo vitu kama zinaweza kulead to search. So after like 2 days nikasikia wameekelea mtu mwingine. Na huo mtu akatoa pesa. So nikaanza kujiuliza kama ni biashara ama nini, but mimi nikatupilia mbali. So na judge agetuka ni akugadia ni iko ati eko. But the matter was coming to do DNA. Mwene tudarenda. Muthigari omwegeso kiria gatha tagwo Steve Opiro. Steve Opiro hende ndaigeria ni anjire wihe hinya na akigurira musibi na akigurira on the way ni agurira soda akijira onywe na wathi gotini kesi ya defilement. Usikubali. Witness wake ari mamu wao. Amwana yake akiuga onire mwiritu akena kwa garuruku magĩthiĩ na makĩmũthima na akĩonekana ena nda na nĩa mwanake ũyũ wĩ haha. Kumbe hau direct ndamenya ũũ nĩ Anjoha nĩ uga ũguo na
kawe arĩ ho
angĩkorwo mũirĩtu nĩ aramenya atĩ nĩ kuohithia arohithia mwanake njera, niĩ no njuge matige tu, tondũ ta rĩngĩ mũndũ onaga atĩ wohithia mwanake atĩ aroka haha thikũ igĩrĩ acoke aume. Kũndũ gũkũ nĩ kũritũ na nĩ ma mũndũ wĩ nja ingĩmwĩra kũndũ gũkũ ndakanerirĩrie gũka, kũndũ gũkũ nĩ kũũmũ mũno.
Kĩndũ ingĩhoya to the government nĩ rore about cases of anything mũndũ agĩthiĩ gũtwarwo igoti-inĩ kũrĩa, marore mwena ũyũ na mwena ũyũ na nĩgetha mone boy child ndakore.
If you've been paying attention, I'm sure you can notice a common pattern here. All these men and women who are imprisoned on false charges of sexual assaults, they had not just been sent there over a whim by some evil angel. No, their situations had been purposely perpetrated by people in their lives. It could be their friends, their neighbors, their children's teachers, their angry, bitter ex-wives, people they just met months or even weeks ago, or in the worst cases of betrayal, their children themselves. Police, doctors, and sometimes even judges and magistrates are accomplices in such evil schemes. But what this really boils down to is money. That policeman wants to make a little bit of money from the bribes he's going to get, and so does that judge and that doctor. Nobody is coming here with pure intentions. Nobody is really looking for justice. With all the liars and perpetrators, it's hard to tell the do liars from the genuine ones. They all look the same. They all sound the same. And although these misfortunes mostly befall men, they are not one-sided. Women also find themselves in similar situations. I'm not implying that anyone who is charged with sexual offenses is innocent. I'm saying that some of them are. Take this girl for example. She found herself in prison after being accused of defiling her neighbor's son. And although she was innocent, it didn't stop the judge from sentencing her to 10 years in prison.
Nikauliza polisi, mnanipeleka wapi? Wakaniambia utajua mbele. So wakati nilienda police station, nikaingishwa, hata sikuulizwa chochote. Ati venye mtu anaambiwa ingia OB ndio uelezee. Sikupewa hiyo nafasi ya kuelezea. Niliweza kuingishwa ndani ya cell direct, na venye niliingishwa cell nikanyang'anywa simu.
However, lucky for her, the woman who had falsely accused her of defiling her son had a change of heart after 3 years, and she came back to apologize and get her out of prison. Which didn't work, by the way, and she ended up serving her full sentence of 10 years in prison.
Imagine after 3 years ndio Sophia anakuja ku-withdraw case. As in anatoa hiyo kesi mimi niende nyumbani. Haikukuwa hivyo, ni hasira. Unaona venye alisema na ashani wastea time. Nililia nikiwa kwa mbao. Yona alisema kesi kama hizi hawezi achilia. Kulingana na complainer amekaa miaka mingi, karibu 3 years nikiwa custody. Ni nini amefikiria ndiye kuja toe kesi?
When I think of how this plays out in court, it makes me more certain that there is no intrinsic desire to serve justice that is in any of the people who make up the justice system. Nobody really cares about serving justice or finding out what really happened. No, it's all protocol and getting the case over with so you can get to the next one. What is considered as a life-altering moment for the victims is just another Tuesday at work for the judicial officials. When the judge, magistrate, prosecution, jury, or those present in court take one look at the accused and the accused looks guilty, do you think that they give two about whether or not you're innocent? Hell no. They'll just be like, this guy looks guilty, he's our guy, let's put him in jail. And just like that, your dreams, your aspirations, your plans for your future, they all go out the window. I have no faith in the justice system. Not after all the inmates I've interacted with and heard their side of the story. Maybe I'm wrong. That's just my opinion. I did my research, by the way, and I'm allowed to have an opinion on such matters. So I won't get in trouble for repeating that I have no faith in the justice system. As for the middle-aged people who get in trouble for such cases, I think I get where they're coming from. You see, it's crucial to acknowledge the historical context when discussing age and marriage in different cultures. Now, traditionally, what we now label as underage girls were often considered ripe for marriage, fully matured and ready to embark on the journey of wedlock. From the bustling streets of ancient Rome, the beautiful halls of ancient Greece, the amazing kingdoms in Africa, the center of Islamic culture in the Middle East, to the serene villages of Southern Asia, the practice of marrying off daughters as young as 13 was not only common, but expected. It's a notion that might raise eyebrows today, yet it was the norm for centuries. And while it's true that many traditional cultures married girls off at a young age, often in their early teens, it's important to consider the broader implications of such practices. Contrary to popular belief, these traditions weren't born out of ignorance but rather a keen understanding of biology. Biologically speaking, many girls at the tender age of 13 were already physically mature and sexually active. It's still the case today, but nowadays, we champion education, personal growth, and most importantly, consent. It's no longer enough for a girl to reach puberty to be considered marriage material. We demand more, a chance to pursue dreams, explore passions, and carve out their own destinies. Furthermore, marrying off young girls can perpetuate cycles of poverty and limit their abilities to make informed choices about their lives. The shift towards protecting children from early marriages reflects a broader understanding of human rights and recognition of the agency and autonomy of individuals, regardless of age and gender. However, there is always a different perspective to everything. So while modern sensibilities have ushered in a new era of enlightenment with regards to early marriages and empowerment of young girls, they have also brought about the eradication of critical cultural values that I think should never have been forgotten. The family unit, for example, is getting weaker every decade and slowly fading away. This is mainly because of female degeneracy, which has been encouraged in high schools, institutions of higher education, and sometimes even in education levels as low as primary schools. Say what you will about early marriages and traditional cultures, but if there is one thing our ancestors did right, was create a perfect society where family units were the strong pillars that held the community together, which is something I can't really say about today's society. Maybe we should acknowledge the wisdom of our ancestors and consider the implications when making such laws. Moreover, it's unfair to demonize individuals who are raised in environments where early marriage was the norm. And I do know that ignorance is no defense, but just as societal norms evolve, so do individual beliefs and behaviors. It hasn't been a century since we gained our freedom from those colonial brutes, which means that a full generation is yet to pass by, which means that we are still adapting to this new modern era of westernization and the disregarding of our own values and traditional cultures. Rather than casting judgment, we should strive to educate and empower individuals to make informed choices that align with modern values of equality, consent, and personal agency. So next time you find yourself debating between female empowerment and preserving traditional values, remember this: it's not about clinging to the past or blindly embracing the future. It's about finding the delicate balance between the two, honoring our roots while reaching for the stars. False charges have been a thing for a while now, and if you think that this is only a Kenyan problem, then you're in for a rude shock. This thing is a worldwide phenomenon. Now, Citizen TV did do an episode where they called in a few experts and lawyers and talked about the whole thing, but I'm not going to play the video here because it doesn't really provide a solution. It just goes over identifying the problem and who it affects, without really telling any man or woman out there how to handle false charges if they found themselves in such a situation. I'll link it down below if you want to go and watch it. However, as the genius that I am, and because I'm always leading with insight, I do have a few suggestions. If you ever find yourself in a defilement case, the first thing to know, besides the fact that you are in a life-altering moment, and probably not for the better, is that there is exactly 3 groups of people who can make or break you. One is the police officers. Now this group is mostly more powerful in the beginning stages of your case, that is before the case is filed and taken to court. So once you are arrested and taken to the police station, remember that police officers are your friends. So if you can settle it with them, then do it, whatever it might cost you. The second group is that of the victims. Now this person can either save you or completely bury you. Their testimony is what the judges and magistrates use to make the sentence. So if you can make peace with them, or if you're innocent, get them to say that you're innocent. Then it will save you a really harsh sentencing. The third and final person you need to be on the good side with is the doctor. Now this is the most powerful of the three parties. Think of it this way. If the police, the victim, the witnesses and everyone else gives a false testimony, well, they can't really prove it unless the doctor backs up their argument. In other words, the doctor has the power to imprison you or set you free. The doctor's report is one of the major things the judges use to make the sentence. So if the doctor is not on your side, the fate of your life is balancing on a needle's pointer. So remember, a minor is someone who is below 18 years of age. Remember the sentences for defilement of a minor or any sexual activity with them. Remember how many years you'll be sitting in a jail cell, waking up at 4 in the morning and having supper at 3 p.m. with your fellow men looking at you with eyes lusty men used to gauge hot women. Remember that consent does not disprove that it's still an act of defilement. A minor cannot give consent. And remember to run away every time a girl looks as if she's below the age of 25. Because no one will give you back your 5 or 15 years you spend in prison, even if you turn out to be innocent. No one's going to pay you. Nothing will happen to the ones who falsely accuse you. All you'll get, if you're lucky enough, is sorry. So lead with insight, hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up if you like the video, and ring that notification bell. And if you think that it's crazy how false charges or one look at a teen can ruin your life, wait till you see how African education systems trained people to be slaves. Click right here to watch the video and I'll meet you there. You are a genius. Lead with insight, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.